What I worry about first and foremost is my children. There's no deliberation, that's just the way it is when you're a mother. When you've an incurable disease and you're open and discuss it as a family, you realise that in fact it's the really simple things like going away together, like spending time together, like laughing together, that are much more important. Joy and pleasure and happiness and contentment are what your focus needs to be, by focusing on those very little things, that your children see that. Your children understand that even in the face of what for some people might be a dreadful diagnosis, and is, I'm not minimising it, that you can still live and you can still have fun and you can still laugh. And yes, you cry on days, of course you do. And there's sometimes moments where it's impossible to be hopeful. But on the whole, over the last 5 years since I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, I've probably laughed more and been more relaxed eventually than I would have been before. And I value time, and I value the part that I get to decide where I spend my time. I take that very seriously. In many ways, I consider life is very much divided into the people who've had terrible things happen to them, usually through no fault of their own, and those who haven't. And you'll find very quickly in the cancer world, we're the terrible thing that has happened. But actually, it's a very joyful place to be, because you realise very quickly that squeezing every inch joy out of the room is the most important purpose. And when you bring doctors into a room and the scientists into a room, I find myself all the time having to say, no, we're not mad, we're not crazy, and we're not deluded, we're living. Unfortunately, I was diagnosed within a year of being discharged as a primary patient as metastatic, which is incurable. And my assumption walking into the metastatic diagnosis and the treatment was, wow, I just had an amazing experience as a primary cancer patient. And I just held on to that view, and I realised very shortly, within a quick space of time, and as I started to read about my own condition and stage 4 cancer and advanced cancer, I realised there was a big problem. And the problem was that we're not referenced, we're not looked at, we're not funded, we're not counted, we're actually invisible within the system. But when I saw there was a big gap when I was diagnosed metastatic in terms of the services and the supports and the treatments and the data and the numbers and all of those holes, when I saw all those holes, I knew enough as a researcher to understand that research and evidence was the only way to make that change. And so whilst cure is very important, in fact, what you work out very quickly as a patient is that the care that the system can provide you and the support, in fact, in many ways becomes more important. And what you see within the system is a system that is focused relentlessly on curing. But we're in a situation where there is no cure for most of our cancers, stage 4 cancers. And so, in fact, care becomes more important. We are living longer with stage 4 cancer, and that is going to lengthen as time goes on, and there's going to be more and more of us in this boat, but we're not actually seen by the system at the moment. So we feel invisible, we feel neglected, we feel that the system, without changing the focus and without acknowledging that we are part of that system, that we are cancer patients, that is never going to change. There will never be a change for us stage 4 cancer patients unless we are written into cancer strategies from the beginning and included and resourced appropriately. So keep asking and keep involving people who are in the situation that they're in, because they know and they understand and they get it.